So yes, we're looking for the right school for your child, right? Absolutely, but I would also argue that it has to be right for you, the primary caregiver, social secretary, taxi driver, you know where I'm heading with this, and your family. Depending on the stage you're at, nursery, prep or senior school, I would apply varying degrees of importance, but I'd strongly urge you, for you and your family's sanity, to think carefully about and closely research. Number 1, logistics. If this is your first child, we would hope that you would have chosen a nursery within walking distance of home, not least for the friendship circle. For prep school, we would still be very mindful about staying close. Isn't there something rather wholesome about a walk-to-school mentality than being stuck in a traffic for an hour each way? Now, there are exceptions to that, when parents go in search of more room to breathe and facilities. And with senior school, your child will venture further afield along the travel routes, or board. But the logistics at each level have to work. After-school clubs, sports fixtures, and location of the sports fields all matter. Are you thinking of one school for all your children at prep and senior school, or separate schools all the way? How might that work? Term dates aren't a deal breaker, but be aware. We've just come out of half term, and I've met with one exasperated working mother who'd had 4 weeks of half term. The fees are indeed a large part, but they are not only they're not the only part of the equation. Consider again, is it one for all children, or are their needs so different to consider different types of schools? What's the ethos of the school? How open is access? Make sure that you look at bursarial options and scholarships, but also make sure that you check what plans, capital plans that is, that are in the pipeline. How are funds raised? One parent I spoke with recently was panicking because the school was requesting funds before their child had even before their child had even entered the school. Check a netball tours to Jersey or Jamaica. I recently had a fascinatingly telling chat with 2 mums about half-term clubs laid on by their schools. One was £20 for a half day of cricket. Another was a £90 all-day affair. Make sure it works for you and you've done your due diligence, and there won't be any nasty surprises. So, the right school for your child needs to be the right community for your family, in the right place, at the right price. Easy. So how do I find it? Or how do you find it? There are 5 key tools. Time. Start early. Research. Do your research. Empower yourself with the knowledge of admissions processes. Read Tatler. Communication. Talk to the schools and each other. That's your partner. And tune in. Listen to your prep school. Similarly, listen to what is being said by the prospective schools and apply the same skills. I recently attended a senior schools panel, and what fascinated me about this hugely informative evening was the things that the heads didn't say, the tone of their answers, and the line of the questioning from the audience. And lastly, feel. Trust your instinct. The joy of doing what I do is when I have a conversation or a visit that makes my heart sing. That's most likely to come through in the copy. But what makes my heart sing may not be what resonates with you. Take my first London visit when I asked the then head whether he planned to invest in the latest tech of interactive whiteboards. He looked utterly horrified and retorted, "Good God, no! I have fountain pens and teachers that can teach." That utterly delighted me, but might absolutely have horrified you. So use it as a starting point, dig deeper, and strive to find that school that, in the words of John Floyd of Wycombe Abbey, gives you that warm and fuzzy feeling. So with these tools in mind, how can you put them into action right here, right now? Hopefully I will have prompted lots of questions, which I'd be delighted to answer. But next, grab a copy of the Tatler Schools Guide. Come and buy a copy, grab a coffee and assign that 15 minutes to read through the sections that are geographically relevant to you. So look at your programme and mark it up and organise a hit list. Be single-minded about it, as it's so easy to get distracted and return home with tomes of beautifully glossy marketing literature that you will never read. Secondly, talk to the registrar. Try and speak with someone who has a role in the school aside from just marketing. Listen to them and treat it a bit like reading the Tatler Schools guide, whether they are in it or not. Ask questions that are relevant to your child and your circumstances. Is the school listening, or have they gone on autopilot? How do they answer? Ask them about their competitors. Do they blind you with facts and figures? Are they dismissive, or are they confident in their offerings and place in the market? How schools see themselves can be very telling. If you're considering boarding, really get to the bottom of what that really means and be absolutely confident that it's right for you. It's not as simple as full or weekly. Be an absolute terrier with them about what weekly means, for example, and how a pupil's experiences might differ. Is that Friday evening or Saturday after sports fixture? Later you can corroborate with pupils and parents, but that has a very, very different impact on your family for the weekend. Ask schools how their timetables are structured, particularly in the transitional years. How are pupils presented with all the different choices? How long are the lessons? Would a day of 35-minute lessons suit your child best, or one that had 1-hour lessons? When do they have their co-curricular activities, and how does that change through a pupil's time at school? There are many super talks over the weekend with lots of advice of the kinds of questions, but the key is to take advantage of all these schools being on site and cross-reference again. And don't be afraid to ask the really difficult questions. If you need some ideas, go and visit the section of our website where we have asked pupils to ask their heads about bullying, expulsions, eating disorders, all the kinds of questions that you'd actually really quite like to know, but you're either too frightened to ask or too busy sucking up to the head. So take the marketing blurb, but peel away the layers of the onion now. And if you like what you hear, sign up for the open days and newsletters and research some more and visit again. Do not be put off. But remember that these are all shows. Dig deeper and look beyond the obvious. My advice is that as soon as you feel that things are getting too orchestrated, start going off-piste. Engage your tour guides in conversation about what their school means to them, their day-to-day experiences, what they would change, who makes them laugh. Pupils get wonderfully indiscreet as the tour progresses, so take the time to engage with them. And stop. Stop at the places that they don't necessarily want you to stop, and chat to those who have not been wheeled out to tour the visitors. The teacher quietly gathering the books in a classroom, the lunchtime staff. Crucially, what do they think of the kids? Are they polite? You'll learn far more from the pupils and the people on the ground than you will from the head about what life is really like day to day. One of my most recent wonderful experiences was when visiting a pre-prep. I commented on a little boy who had a bandage. Of course, everyone suddenly wanted some attention, and hands shot up with tales of knocks and falls. It could have been incredibly embarrassing, but instead it was met with the most wonderful air of humour and confidence, and I knew that the children were in safe hands and having a wonderful time. Lastly, always follow up. Yes, you are ultimately the one who will choose the right school for your child, but the schools are most certainly looking at you. At Tatler, we always handwrite a thank you letter after a visit, and we treat everyone, absolutely everyone we meet, with the same courtesy. So for those schools that you've met here and are interested in, follow up. And after you've visited, follow up again. Start that relationship now. So in conclusion, it is about finding the right school for your child in the context of what you understand and agree and feel comfortable with logistics that are reasonable so that you are not run ragged and your children's experiences complement each other. And that does take planning. Don't be afraid to start planning early. Engage with your existing school and listen to them. And create a dialogue and ensure there's accountability and responsibility so that any necessary gaps are filled in by them, and that there is a proactive approach to your child flourishing at a prep school in order for them to find the best fit for their senior school. Think outside the obvious, ask individual questions and actively listen. And keep a diary. Write notes and be true to yourself, because if you knowingly make the best choice you can in the circumstances, you'll be able to get your child through the inevitable wobbles and to be able to make informed decisions. And to end, I'm just going to remind you of that wonderful quote from Anthony Seldon. The best parents choose the school for their child. The worst parents choose their school for themselves. Best of luck.